Hello students, welcome to EPG Patashala. I am Dr. K.R. Ram Mohan, Associate Professor and Head Department of Anthropology, Sikkim University. Today we are going to discuss a module on thinkers on Indian civilization, Rabindranath Tagore. This module comes under the paper Indian Anthropology. Before we go this module, let us understand the learning objectives. We need to understand the early life of Tagore, Tagore's literary contributions, the relationship between Tagore and Gandhi, their views, and Tagore's views on civilization. To know a little bit of Tagore's early life and his brought up, Rabindranath Tagore was born on 7th May 1869. He is born in Calcutta. Rabindranath Tagore is often considered as one of the pioneering intellectuals for the modernization of Indian thinking in India. Rabindranath comes from a family where he is the youngest son of Rabindranath Tagore and Sarda Devi. Because of his father's intellectual tradition and movement, Rabindranath Tagore was one of the leaders of Brahmo Samaj. All Indians are very proud of Rabindranath Tagore's work, and for the first time, a non-European, an Asian who got the Nobel Prize for his significant contributions in literature in 1913 by his famous works on Gitanjali. Tagore was the first Indian to show the world that through literature we can inspire many people, and for that he earned, and he rightly deserves, a Nobel Prize in literature. He was influenced by many of the guiding principles and the social reform aspects from Brahmo Samaj. Perhaps Brahmo Samaj has certain religious connotations, and sometimes it is also referred it as a religious sect in 19th century Bengal, where the Samaj objectives was to have a revival of the ultimate monistic basis of Hinduism, and which was laid down through the writings Upanishads. Tagore was much influenced right from his childhood, where he got the best education at home. And he has also been exposed to the Western modes of education. In his early years, he was sent to England to receive the Western mode of education. So this gave a platform for Rabindranath Tagore to receive both Indian way of education and the Western way of education. Rabindranath Tagore was considered to be a literary genius in his times. He has produced many masterpieces even at an early age. He has been very good in many activities, not only to literature but other family and business matters. He has been exposed to the common man in Bengal and see what are the living conditions. From that point onwards, Tagore was interested to understand the everyday social realities that confronted the normal social groups, and he wanted to bring certain kinds of social reforms. Tagore's contributions comes in many ways. Tagore was considered to be filled with patriotic feelings. He has much offered as he composed both the lyrics and the music for India's national anthem, which we sing every day in the schools, in the public spaces, and we are proud and we take pride when we sing this national anthem. The credit goes to Rabindranath Tagore in the form of Jana Gana Mana, meaning that you are the ruler of all minds, which has a profound meaning of raising the human intellect at the highest pedestal, where no other one could recognize and put in a lyric form at that point of time. And the credit goes to Rabindranath Tagore, is also called the Gurudev. Though Tagore wrote successfully many literary genres, he was basically a poet which could express his feelings creatively, magnificently with his flowery language in many forms, where he could synthesize the nature, the beauty of the natural phenomena into words. And his famous works are Manasi, Sonartari, Gitanjali, which he brought him the Nobel Prize, and the Geetmala, which are considered to be extraordinary masterpieces in the world of literature, which not only had an implicit meaning in its own way, but it gave a message to the entire human society. He did not even restrict himself to Bengali writing. He has produced masterpieces in English as well. And he has produced the works of The Gardener in 1913, The Fruit Gathering in 1916, and The Fugitive in 1921. Tagore's genius has expanded not only in writing a national anthem or producing poetic works, but Tagore was very famous in writing theatre plays. His famous theatre play was the Raja, the King of the Dark Chamber, the Dakhar, the Post Office, and the Achalitan, the Immovable, or very famous in those times. He did not restrict even to theatre plays. He has produced monumental works in short stories. A number of novels, among them are The Gora, The Garbairi, and The Yogiyak, The Cross Currents. His intellectual activities has ranged from poetry, theatre plays, short fictions, short stories, musical dramas, dance dramas. Essays have come in all forms. Tagore was also famous for his travel diaries and his two large autobiographies. Tagore, while producing all these masterpieces and having playing a constructive role in the national movement. He was in touch with the Mahatma Gandhi, and there was a series of correspondences between Tagore and Gandhi. In that particular time, Tagore wrote a famous letter to Mahatma at the inception of non-cooperation movement, where Gandhi has called all the masses to not cooperate with the British. Let them teach a lesson that we are not interested in your governance. Please give us the country back. And Tagore has expressed his own ideas how to make this non-cooperation movement much more vibrant and much more practical to take into the large masses of Indian society. Tagore was also skeptical about concerning other features in Gandhiji's agenda. Some of the things that he pointed out, perhaps Gandhiji might have gone little beyond, and this is where it is not practical. So he expressed his own ideas towards Gandhi's agenda for freedom struggle. So the fundamental difference between these two great thinkers, as India has produced, is the attitude gets reflected in the educational writings of both Gandhi and Tagore, where Tagore has produced an artistic bent of mind which prompted him to conceive of leisure as the core of meaningful life. If and only human beings have some time to spend himself from a leisure point of view, perhaps there could be blossoming of creativity. If a human life is burdened with everyday livelihoods and he is devoid of this leisure, there is no facilitation for beginning of the intellect, in a sense, beginning of creativity. Whereas Gandhi's value of manual labor, which is that he wants to reconstruct the whole meaning of labor, and stressed that, emphasize work as the fruitful way of harnessing energies. And his famous slogan is, work is worship. We don't need any other God. Just to do your work, and that gives you more meaningful and more energy. So at this juncture, Tagore, despite his great love and admiration of Gandhi's vision and Gandhi's philosophy and many features of Western life, as quintessentially in agreement with Gandhi's judgment. Yes, some of the things can be taken forward. Some of Gandhi's ideologies, Gandhi's practical philosophy is very much in tune with the social realities of Indian society at that particular point of time. So Gandhi has described Indian infatuation with the West as something like a delusion, something like which is illusion, something which you cannot achieve. Hence, he termed it as, it is a cultural suicide, that one must not follow the Western way of life because Indian reality is different from Western reality. Hence, one should not fall into the trap of this illusion and what he call it as a moha, a desire or a fantasy where one could not follow this dream of Western ideology. Tagore was very instrumental with his own ideas, and he wanted to create an ideal platform, an ideal place where the human intellect can grow. The human activities can expand itself. And he created this place called Shantiniketan, where the abode of peace. And Tagore's father, Rabindranath Tagore, found it very peaceful, and it renamed it as Niketan, means a place, and Shanti means peace. Here, Tagore wanted to start his own way of education, this Patha Bhavan, where one can develop one's intellect and ideals. Shantiniketan is not only a place of abode of peace, where so many cultural activities takes place, which showcase the diversity of human performances in more artistic ways. It shows the diversity of human capabilities to various presentations. As we all know, Tagore is also called Gurudev. It's called as fondly. He spends most of the time in this Shantiniketan, and he calls this as a festival of Basanta Utsav. Now, Tagore, being creative of many literary genre, he has his own views on civilization, and opined that this Western civilization should not be followed. If everything is for the good in its own place, but even what is good becomes dangerous, is rubbish in an appropriate setting. So Tagore want to give more importance to the fundamental principles that Indian civilization has floated and flourished. Tagore did not encourage warfare. Tagore wanted Indian freedom through a peaceful manner, because a warfare costs great deal of money and energy and human loss. He did not encourage the monetary aspects in all forms of activities. So in his view, the excess of effort in every sphere of life had created patterns of elaboration and ever increasing excitement, which relegated human beings to a position of insignificance. So, taking his statements on Western civilization, Rabindranath Tagore frequently invoked the concept of relativism, which was a commonplace in the cultural discourses of 19th century Bengal. He did not vehemently create the Western civilization as something bad and Indian civilization is something good. He said that Western civilization has its own unique features which are good in its own place, which are relevant in its own society, which are relevant in its own historical currents. Indian civilization has also much to offer, and it is good in its own place. It has produced the intellectual gem for its own cultural upbringing. So he took a relativist standpoint and could see the best in these two civilizations. Tagore, while citing Guizot, noted that the uniqueness of Western civilization in its multiplicity of drives and the coexistence of often incompatible with institutions and tendencies. So for Tagore, everything was permitted in its service and nothing was allowed to thwart with its perceived interests. So for him, the end results of such obsessive preoccupation with the national self-interest, which can lead to conflict and eventually self-destruction. Rabindranath had very great fascination to the noted physicist, Nobel laureate Albert Einstein. When he met Einstein, he had exchanged the views of Indian civilization, the science, spirituality, and the human progress. To summarize, the significant contributions of Rabindranath Tagore, we need to understand how Rabindranath Tagore's idea was shaped right from his childhood. Rabindranath Tagore, born in Calcutta, and he was a product of great Bengali intellectual renaissance. His father Debendranath Tagore was one of the leaders of Brahma Samaj. Brahma Samaj, though it was considered to be followed certain religious principles, but Brahma Samaj was a social reform movement where it focused on social change in the Bengali society and the rest of the society. Rabindranath Tagore received his early education at his home, and the later part he received Western education in England. He has the opportunity to blend both Indian tradition of education and Western tradition of education. Rabindranath Tagore is famous for his literary masterly genius. And as we Indians are very proud of Rabindranath Tagore's contribution with his famous literary and musical composition of our Indian national anthem. Today, it stands unchanged because the meanings is very profound of when we hear this song Jana Gana Mana. Rabindranath Tagore has put Indians at the highest altar by getting a Nobel Prize in Literature for his masterpiece Gitanjali. It was the first time a non-European, an Indian, who received the highest recognition in literature through his masterpiece Gitanjali. Rabindranath Tagore is a multifaceted personality. His range of works not only limited to poetry, but he has equally produced masterpieces in short stories. He has produced excellent theatre plays. He has produced masterpieces in drama, in musical compositions. And today, India, we have this musical compositions, what we call Rabindra Sangeet, which stands unique for its own musical, rhetorical, musical composition. Having his ideological trainings from his father and the ground realities that are prevailing in Bengal society, he wanted to propose his ideas towards social transformation. He floated his own concept of education, his own views on civilization. His own contribution to Indian national movement in the form of when Gandhiji was floating this idea of non-cooperation movement. Tagore has clearly expressed his views to Mahatma Gandhi, the way he wants to see India. And he has supported many Gandhi's views on how to bring patriotism and how to fight the British rulers in a most peaceful, non-violent way without any war, because Tagore was under the opinion that war will cost a lot of money, effort and human loss. He was against to this idea. Tagore has specific views on education. Tagore viewed that education should lead to all-round development. Education should not restrict human intellect. The kind of education an individual receives must blossom like a flower. It should give to enough scope for creativity, and this creativity should be used for human progress. With these ideals, he started his own way of instruction at Shantiniketan. He wanted to give the ideals of integrated education, holistic education, where the human mind should capture the finer aspects of reality. It should synthesize in such a way that there should be a complete synchronization with the man and nature. And today Shantiniketan stands for the most profound way of education, instruction received under the footsteps of Gurudev. He wanted to promote the liberal arts, literature, painting, music, and any subject which related to human sensibilities. Tagore also wanted to promote science, which is useful for human progress, to increase the status of human well-being. So there should be science and humanistic ways of education should be blended together. Tagore had specific conversations with the great scientist Einstein. He exchanged his views on the quintessential aspects of Indian civilization. He wanted to bring science with humanity, where it can do wonders. Tagore's contribution has brought revolutionary changes through his writings. He could ignite the intellectual passions among ordinary citizens in India. He has produced masterclass pieces even in English literature. He has inspired millions of people through his ideals, in his works. Tagore has put the human intellect at the highest pedestal. And he says that intelligence and creativity can be nourished in a given proper training, in a proper direction. And citizens of India are capable to do that. He wanted to see that human intellect should be surrounded with all the beauties of nature, which is endowed with these finer sensibilities. Tagore's contributions to give more insights into philosophy into history. And he wanted to take both these philosophical writings to the common man and how it can be understood not only to the elite but the man, and which can incorporate into one's life. Tagore's views are very specific about all the civilizations in the world. Tagore produced that civilizations must be understood from a culturally relativistic point of view.